And hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host, and I have a very, very special guest on today. I was recently introduced to this gentleman by his brother, who's also a friend of mine, and my gosh, I just can't wait to introduce you guys. Like this is amazing. So I'd like to go ahead and welcome Jay Levin to the show, or is it Jay Steven Levin? My bad for that, but welcome to the show, Jay.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on, and you had me kind of rocking to the early disco intro music.
Yeah, it's you know, it's just one of those things, you know. I found a great little tune to make the intro video. So
yeah, it's got a quacky little downbeat.
Right. So Jay, I told you I created this show earlier in the year. I created this show to kind of give back to the world and help people have a breakthrough in life, because I truly believe that we all get stuck from time to time, and a lot of people don't know how to get unstuck. And you know, I just wanted to I want you to kind of tell people some of the things you've been through in life, what the obstacles you've hit, and how you got past them and became, you know, pretty successful in your own right. So, you know, let's talk about that. Let's start with where you were born and raised. Talk about that a little bit.
Okay, so before I'm going to do that, I'm going to follow your instructions specifically. But before I do, there's a key word that you used that I want to just comment on. And the key word is, a lot of people don't know how to get unstuck.
Right.
So I like the whole Uncola thing. I like the whole anti-hero thing. I like the whole approach of doing it a little bit differently. But when it comes to getting unstuck, I found across a number of different experiences, a number of different cultures, a number of different countries, that it's easier to get what you want instead of unsticking yourself from where you are to just stick yourself to where you want to be. In fact, it is the actual definition of yoga. Yoga classically means to bind or to tether or to link. And its understanding is, if you link to what you want and attach yourself to what you want, you'll be closer to getting it. A lot of people choose the opposite approach and focus on what they don't want and find themselves trying to get unstuck. So just a point of distinction there for an approach.
Wow. And if I may interject, if you guys can't tell already, this guy, this dude thinks on a completely different level than most people. I mean, way different. And that's a compliment.
Yeah, thank you. I thought you were saying I was a little spaced out.
Well, I don't judge anybody. I think you're awesome, man. So, and by the way, anyone who shares this out, we will send you very, very silent blessings. So thank you for all the shares in advance. So Jay, let's go back to where you were born and raised.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Philly, into a nice Jewish culture. So I grew up in a predictable trajectory. paranoid, slightly schizophrenic, and very much modeled like Woody Allen. So, uh, and those stamps have stayed with me ever since. So I grew up in a community or a neighborhood where there was a real sense of community, and community is a strain for me that, in a positive sense, it has followed me all my life because I went into a monastic community. But where I grew up was a community, a neighborhood where for the first 7 or 8 years, I thought everybody was my uncle and aunt because all the homes and the adults in the homes agreed to have their kids call all the other adults by Uncle John or Aunt Shirley. So I just kept thinking, wow, I've got this amazing family, until one day I said, how is it that I have all these aunts? So it was a very Jewish, it was a very community experience. It was very connected, and yet I felt, although I had no physical reason for it, I felt isolated just because of the nature of, I just didn't think I related to things and values that other people related to. So that was one of the cornerstones of my neurosis.
Okay. So so put that in lay terms in one sentence.
That no matter how or what situations we are born into, whether they're positive or negative, it's natural to feel isolated.
Oh.
And when we come to thinking about getting what we want, it's hard to get unstuck from isolation. It's better to get tied to a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
So belonging as a Jewish kid in a Jewish community was an important sense. I went to synagogue, we observed holidays, my dad was religious, and yet still, though I had this community, familiar community around me, I thought and felt different. And we all feel some degree of separation, right? That's just the nature of us.
Right. Right. So you grew up in a very Jewish community, and I don't, since I'm not, I do have a little bit of Jewish in my bloodlines, but I'm certainly not familiar with what that whole what the definition, I guess, of that would mean. To you, it means something. To me, it means okay, because I don't know what that means. That's like me saying I grew up in a Catholic environment. I don't even know what that means. So, but my question for you is: so you went to all of your elementary and middle school, high school, all of that in Philadelphia?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was characterized by my teachers as a dreamer, and it was never really a very positive characterization.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Oh, your son, he's the dreamer. Why? Well, he's always looking out the window. Yeah. So I had experiences when I was young that I didn't completely understand, but they felt wonderful, and they made me feel included. And they made me feel a part of something that I inherently knew I belonged to. And I felt centered in those, although I could not touch the experience. I could not see the experience. It was invisible and intangible. But it at a very young age, 5, 6, 4, I had a few of these experiences where I realized I feel more connected to something which I can't see than the community around me that I can see. Right. So it was an interesting dichotomy and irony, and the Jewish is just a flavor of that, really.
Right, right. So I mean, what was, you ended up, I mean, I know you worked with You've been an entrepreneur most of your adult life, I believe. Did you end up going to college after high school?
Yeah, I did. I went right to college after high school. It
Okay.
wasn't even a consideration that I didn't go. It was just a part of what the expectation was, and I was happy to live it out.
Yeah.
So I graduated. I went to Penn State. I graduated. Actually, purchased college. I changed schools midway. I went a fifth year instead of a fourth. School was never something that was easy for me. And yet in my fourth and fifth year, I took off like a rocket, and I really got great grades and applied myself. I graduated with a degree in comparative religious philosophy and wrote a thesis of 125 pages when I was, 17 years old, which helped me to understand the importance of how to organize things. But the reality of it was that I wasn't an entrepreneur all my life. In fact, people kept saying, "You seem like an entrepreneur." And I said, "Nah, I don't think I am." And I really didn't get it until a while ago. And so I graduated, then I traveled around the world, then I entered a spiritual community. I spent 20 years in a monastic community that was yoga oriented. I learned
What does that mean, monastic?
The community. I was a monk.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't walk around in ochre robes, but I had them. But I was a monk,
Wow.
and I lived like a monk. I acted like a monk, but I didn't always think like a monk.
Wow. What do you mean you didn't always think like a monk? How does a monk think?
The stereotypic example of how a monk thinks is somebody who is humble and timid and surrendered and filled with love and inspiration, that has given their lofty desires and goals to God and is beaming with a sense of beatitude. Those were aspirations, but that's never what I was. I just joined because I wanted to give back to that which gave to me. And it was a natural expression of the heart. I wasn't ever very good at it.
Wow.
So
that's
yeah,
powerful.
It is powerful. And I learned a lot of the disciplines I use today in the monastery. Some of the techniques I use when I work with people, I learned from the spiritual leader of our organization. I learned it from the spiritual teachings, which were over 5,000 years old. And I learned them from fellow monks that I saw how they thought, how they acted, what disciplines they have, how they solved problems, how they related to the world, or how they didn't.
So let me ask you this though. I mean, was this like any sort of was there a religious denomination to this?
Yeah, there was. It was it's called self-realization. It is on the principles of a book called Autobiography of a Yogi.
Okay.
It is yogic based. It believed in the inherent oneness of the truths of all the religions. It combined Hinduism, but it wasn't Hinduism, with
Right.
Catholicism. And what it was based on the heart, and its principles were, and in our brief discussions, you and I, we share some of those principles. Its principles were, if you listen quietly enough, you will learn to hear something of which you are a part of, speaking, guiding, and loving you. And you don't need to know necessarily what to say. You just need to learn how to be quiet enough to listen to what's being whispered. But we can't hear what's being whispered because we're talking so loud to ourselves. So it was a denomination, but it was not a structured, dogmatic thing. I was out in the world a lot. I worked with companies. I toured. I led retreats. And I was invariably drawn to very successful high achievers who wanted to achieve more of what they had already achieved. And that was my interest. I was interested in translating eternal truths that I learned into practical knowledge that could be applied to get the results people wanted to get in the world. But I always worked with high achievers.
Okay. So you grew up, you said that so both your parents are Jewish.
Right.
You said your father was a very religious Jewish man.
Yes, he was Orthodox until he married my mother.
Okay. And then you went to something very not Jewish, right? I'm assuming. I shouldn't assume, but like it's kind of in a different direction.
Yeah, but it didn't matter to me because the Judaism, well, for example, I went to a Sunday school like every Jewish kid does, right?
Yeah.
And a year into it, or less, I said to the teacher, when are we going to talk about Christ? And she said, oh, we're going to talk about that next week. And I said, okay. So obviously next week I said, so can we talk about Christ? What is it? Who is he? Why?
Right.
Well, we're going to get to that next week. Well, I was a little slow. It only took about 4 weeks for me to realize next week that train was never going to come.
Wow.
So to me, I realized, okay, there is a dogma here. There's something that I'm not getting. There's something that I'm not being told. Nobody's keeping anything from me, but I realized that I have to discover that which is for myself. I can learn, but I was already outside of the walls of characteristic dogmatic religion, right? And
dude, I freaking love that. I love that. That would be like sitting in a Christian church saying, Sunday school saying, when are we going to talk about Muhammad? Right? Like, let's go. Let's talk about it. Like, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Like,
yeah. Now, and so when you look at it structurally and you look at it organizationally and you look at it dogmatically, I went from one different system to another.
Yeah.
But when you change the context of the looking, all I was doing was following my heart. I wanted to find that which I felt loved me because I wanted to learn who is it, what is it that is sending me this sense of okayness, this sense of wellness. I want to love you back. How do I do that? Because I don't know who you are and how you look, but
right.
So those were conversations that led me easily to meditation because meditation was designed not to get me to some Hindu something, but it was designed to get me to listen to myself and listen to that which is underneath me. So it really wasn't, in my mind, a moving from one thing to another. It was a natural progression. I was following the heartbeat and footsteps of a voice that was calling me.
Yes, I hear you. So you by the way, did you discover it?
Yeah, of course I did. I discovered it, and I know exactly how to find it.
Yep.
And that doesn't mean I don't hide from it.
Right. Right.
Right.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what's the point of this for all the people that are listening out there? For me, the point and the focus is it's not about Hinduism. It's not about yoga. It's not about Jewish communities. It's not about synagogue. It's about what are the conversations that you're having in your heart that will enable you to listen to the whispers that you sense but haven't yet heard as clearly. So that's the point of this dialogue for me. Otherwise, we're just talking about some Jewish schmuck that grew up as a paranoid schizophrenic in Philadelphia.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, so just for the record, I don't think you're really a paranoid schizophrenic, but but I believe that we all have those. We probably are all a bit symptomatic of those things. So, but I want to move because you were a monk for 20 years.
I was in a spiritual order for over 20 years. Most of that, over 10, 15, I was a monk. I started in the community as a lay person. Then I left the monastic aspect of it, and I got married to a wonderful Roman Catholic that I met while I was in Italy. Here I was, a good Jewish boy in Philadelphia, getting married in the Cathedral of Sorrento to an absolutely gorgeous Italian woman. And I said to myself, you know what? I am so sorry my parents have passed away, but maybe it was better this way because I don't know that they could have handled their Jewish son.
Oh my God. So, oh my Lord, that is so funny. So at some point you did enter though after the monastery, your monkship. Is that a thing? We can make it a thing.
Yeah, we can make it a thing. We can talk about my monkship if I can talk about your lordship.
So here you are, excuse me, here you are having, I mean, dude, most people in this world do not reach, until they're dead, reach those levels of spiritual awareness. I think that a lot of people are definitely curious. I've always been one that I've studied multiple religions, and I've always thought, man, there's something up with this. There's so many different faces that people put on God, and like there's something like, is God really like against a huge percentage of the population? Because that doesn't seem like a loving father to me. If he, like hey, 2/3 of you are going to hell. Like I've always been like curious about all of that. I don't ever claim to have the answer, but I've always been very curious as to what that's all about. And so I love the way that you've explored. So at some point you got into the business world and out of the monk world.
Yeah, and I'll tell you about it in a sec. I want to, this whole aspect of what you're mentioning, faces of God. If it's not relevant for your listeners, then maybe we could talk about it in a different frame, and then I'll talk about the business. So what are some of the faces of God? Well, they could be characteristically defined by religious systems, organizations, teachings, and dogma.
Right.
But for those people who are not so inclined, how about courage over fear? How about selflessness over ego? How about positivity over negativity? How about inclusion over exclusion and isolation? In other words, we're talking about a particular truth that has many, many faces, not just an organized religious face, right?
Right. Yes. Amen.
Yeah. So after 20 years, and the influence of my wife, I realized that I was hiding my creative self-expression in the spiritual community. And I realized that I was either making a big mistake or I needed to go out and express myself in the world. And I thought, if I don't do it now, I don't think I'm ever going to do it. So I left the monastery. We were married before I left the monastery because I stayed in the organization, but not as a monk, because we lived in a larger community than just the monastic aspect. There were nuns, monks, and lay people. And so I left after 20 years, this bubble, and I went out into the world. And I spent literally, I'm not kidding, I spent 2.5 days in a fetal position, not knowing how I was going to reinterpret myself and recreate myself. And I began to get involved in what I always liked. I got involved in advertising, media, and marketing. I started selling radio on the street. I became a sales leader for the crown jewel of a private radio company in Monterey, California. I began doing what I didn't know that I could do and find out that I can do it in my own way, and that selling wasn't as ugly as I thought it was or was told that it was. And then from radio, I got into management with Clear Channel Radio and led salespeople. From there, I was recruited into America Online when it was dropping down a local program that duplicated at a local level a national program. And I was recruited into that at a time when AOL was the internet.
Yeah.
And it was bringing geo-tracking with 6 different media properties to local advertisers.
Wow.
I led all national sales. I did what no one actually thought was possible. And I broke through a wall. I then went on to television. I broke through a wall there and sold in ways and manners and sizes and margins that had not been done before to target clients that had not been approached before. From there I went and I was with Cox Media, Fox TV.
Wow.
So in many ways, I didn't, obviously, and perhaps thankfully I didn't know you, but I was breaking through walls in every single one of these things.
Yeah, sure.
I was breaking through my own fears, my own uncertainties, my own anxieties, and stepping up and stepping into things which I thought were much bigger than my ability to be able to perform. And then lastly, I went on to work at a ad network as a senior vice president, and then was recruited to become a COO and president of a miserably failing ad network that was part of a privately owned group of companies. And I took that company from under $300,000 to over $10 million in less than 4 years. Wow. And I did it despite all the obstacles that the company owners put in my way, and all the obstacles, the constraints, and the difficulties. So I learned 2 different things. I operated for 20 years in an environment of cooperation, simplicity, honesty, and collaboration. And then I moved into an environment in media marketing and advertising where I operated in environments of competition, deceit, and ego.
Yeah.
So I saw, here's what the functional aspects of cooperation are, and I also learned what some of the dysfunctional aspects of being overly cooperative are.
Yeah.
And I learned some of the dysfunctions of corporate America. And I put the behavioral piece that I learned as a monk, the emotional intelligence piece, although it hadn't been called that, and the organizational pieces together. And now I work with leaders and teams to help them break through the walls, if you will, of what they're trying to overcome to get and win more of what they want by leveraging emotional, organizational, and behavioral intelligence. So that's in a nutshell.
So, but because you mentioned
what it is.
You mentioned to me. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of feedback. I want to make sure my microphone's okay. You mentioned to me that you worked with you worked in I guess with books publishing.
Yeah, I worked also with Warner Books. Warner Books was a partner of ours. I was always a part of non-traditional teams, whether it was in TV or whether it was in this spiritual community. I always had leaders that recognized that there was a need to do things in a non-traditional way and saw that I had a penchant for, an ability for, and the capacity to be able to operate in non-traditional ways and be very successful doing so. Now, that's not everybody's bag, but they saw it. I didn't realize it, but I came to appreciate it because of their pointing it out to me. So Warner Books, I was actually working with my brother, actually, a team of 4. And we were partnering with them when we were in the spiritual community, which was very non-traditional, which to me satisfied a desire of mine to mainstream a body of knowledge when yoga and meditation was something that people made fun of. It wasn't something people knew.
Right.
You know, we're talking about 40 years ago.
Yeah. Wow.
So understanding who we are helps us to realize, do we want to work in a non-traditional environment? Maybe be an entrepreneur? Do we have the behaviors? Are we driven by the right things? Do we have the skills to do that? Or do we prefer to work under structure? No blame either way. There are behaviors that we exhibit that are better suited for structure. There are other behaviors that are better suited for ambiguity. And so a part of who I work with are helping leaders to become more entrepreneurial, or people who have been involved in highly structured careers move to entrepreneurial careers, which is a big arc.
Right. Sure it is. So if you were to look back, and I ask some similar questions of everybody I have on the show. If you were to look back over the years of dealing with other entrepreneurs, other business people, other sales people, or just people in life, what do you think, in your opinion, in lay terms? I don't think you realize how intellectually advanced you are in some ways, and so if you can, in some sort of lay terms, what do you think the biggest thing is that keeps people stuck from achieving their real true heart's desires and goals, and that holds them back? What do you think that is?
Well, 9 out of 10 people are going to say fear, of course.
They all, yep. They
okay.
do.
I look at it, and that's certainly a large part of it. I look at it in terms of being isolated. If we're separated from our understanding of who we are, then we really don't have the confidence to maybe do what we want, or we make stupid, dumb decisions about doing things that we know we could really not succeed at. So I think looking back, it's taking inventory, taking stock of being self-aware. I think the lack of self-awareness is a big contributor to slow growth. One of the statements that I make as a founding principle for me is, I believe leaders, real leaders, are activist leaders. They activate conditions that bring about transformation across people, profit, and processes. And so what does that mean? It means that an activist leader is actively trying to understand and activate a sense of self-awareness and lead with a sense of understanding, who am I? What behaviors do I need? What are the motivations that are necessary for me to succeed? Am I well placed in the role that I want? Am I well placed in the role that I am in? What is critically needed for success, and where am I, and how do I close the gap between what I see and what I want, and what are the actions that are needed in order to do that? It's very, very practical, but real leaders are self-aware leaders. They create conditions that bring about transformation. So if we're not creating conditions that will transform us, then how are we going to be able to be really successful in the ways we want? What are some of those conditions? Well, there's a number of them. So,
but I want to know your take on, everybody says that most people use financial gain, net worth, whatever, as the gauge for success. A lot of people, most people in the world, you see a guy that owns a $60 million private jet, and you are flying in coach. Well, most people think, well, the guy with the $60 million jet is obviously more successful. However, that may not be the case, in my opinion. So what is your take on that? Is it because there's some, again, I don't want to get too philosophical and go too deep on people watching this, but what are some of the common denominators in that? Again, this is about your opinion. What are some of the common denominators, in your opinion, of truly successful people?
Look, truly successful people understand what they value, and they do what feeds what they value. A person who values money and return on investment is successful if they make it. A person that values experience over money is not successful if they make a lot of money, because there's an experience that they want to have that they're not having. So if you don't understand what you value, how will you be successful even if you are successful on one material plane or not? Some people just don't value the same. It's how you stack your pancakes. Each pancake is a value, right?
Yeah.
So we can't see. Look, we're not talking about, I don't think, anything overly philosophical or anything overly academic. We can't see what lies behind the facade of things. Just because some cat's got a big jet doesn't mean he's not alcoholic, or he doesn't have a dysfunctional family, or he hasn't overcome a lot of obstacles, or he's going to or been to jail. We don't, who the heck knows? Are we doing what satisfies what we value? If we value money, make it. If we value experiences, have them. If we value security, get it. If we value not making mistakes, don't make them.
So, okay.
So it's hard for me to, you're asking a very general question.
I know. But like, and I absolutely love your answer, by the way. I mean, in fact, I don't normally, I'm a horrible note taker. I'm just going to put that out there. My wife is really good at it. I'm just terrible at taking notes. I rely on my memory way too often, but I wrote it down, and I don't normally take notes during my show, but I wrote down what you just said, and I wrote down a question. And the question is, how does one find, what if they don't know what they value? What if they think they value money because they think that the money is gonna provide the experiences? What if their real true value is traveling the world and staying at 5-star hotels and having 5-star experiences? But you have to have money to do that, right? So how do you find out? Again, this is about your opinion. You are in my opinion, you are a global thought leader, like one of the top thought leaders on this planet, in my opinion. So I want to know, like, how does one find out what they value? What if they can't answer that?
Well, look, first of all, thank you. I'm sure you say that to all your guests.
Oh, yeah, every single one of them.
Okay, so look. Let's get very, very simple about this issue, okay? You talk about financial gain and net worth. So let's focus on the keyword you used. Let's focus on net worth, okay? Worth is an expression of value. If you don't know what you value, fine. Ask people around you, hey, tell me a little bit about what you see. What do I show that I value? If you were to describe what you think I value, what would it be? Look, we live in the most information-rich time in the planet.
Yep.
Right? And yet we are feedback poor. So if we're not really sure what our values are, right?
Hold it. Say that again. We live in the most information-rich period of time on the planet, and yet we are feedback poor.
I wish I would have said that. That's beautiful.
You did. You said that's beautiful. And my wife just said he has never said that to a guest, what I said to you. So there. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
I'm going to take notes on what you just said about. You said we live in the most.
So, okay, continue with your thought.
Okay,
there.
all right. So here's another way of putting it. All right. We have people. What we value, we express. So how are we expressing it? What do we get excited about? Also, what do we not get excited about, right? I work with high achieving, well-paid executives, and some of them tell me, I don't know who I am. And I say, okay, tell me who you're not. And they start telling me who they are because they're giving me a list of who they're not. Right. So it is, right? If you are not sure of what you value,
right,
then you could take an assessment that allows you to see what your driving forces are. It will show you by your responses online what you are. For those who are interested in that, I will offer a complimentary assessment for the first, 5 people that either write you or write me. But the point is, whether the feedback is from friends, whether it's from family members, whether it's from people that you know, whether it's from people at work, whether it's from people at work that you don't get along with, ask, hey, may I have some feedback? I'd like your point of view. And then shop around for a simple online assessment that will give you an understanding of who you are, how people see you, how you see yourself, what your motivational drivers are. There are tools out there. We live in an information-rich society.
Right.
So, if you're clearly clueless, then you're clearly clueless.
Well, here's the thing though. Like
I'm not talking about you.
I know. I get it.
I'm talking about someone who says, honestly, I'm clueless about understanding who I am. Fine. What are the ways that you can find something out? What are the avenues?
Right.
Make a list. Draw a mind map. Start plotting it out. There's tons of different ways.
I can't even tell you I've been doing web development and technology stuff for 24 years. And I can't even tell you how many times people have asked me a question about something and I ponder it. And then I go, I have an idea. And I open up a tab on my computer browser and I go to google.com and I type in the very question that they asked me and boom, there's the answer. And I give them the answer and they go, oh my God, you're so smart. I'm like, I gotta be honest here. I just Googled it. They're like, I didn't think of that. Like, and again, I'm not making fun because there's many times that I'll ask someone a question and then I'll go, why didn't I just look that up on Google or YouTube first?
See, this is another form of feedback, but now we're changing the conversation. We're changing the conversation that started about how do I find out and get answers about what drives me. But now you're talking about questions. So I'm going to follow your lead, your lordship, and I'm going to say it's not about what answers we want to find always.
Right.
Make a list of 3 to 5 simple questions that you need to ask yourself and others. What are the critical questions? What are some of the crucial conversations that you need to have and have them?
Yep. I totally agree. And I went into the questions thing, not to put it back on you, but you were talking about questions. So now I do want to say though, I want to ask you this because again, I want everybody to understand clearly. Number one, you have an assessment tool that you're offering to the first 500. I'm kidding. You said 5 people that reach out to you and ask for access to your assessment tool that you have on your website. I would imagine. So reach out to Jay and ask him for access to that and I don't know what's the normal price associated with that.
Well, I'm offering it complimentary. My pricing starts with for an assessment plus and I'll be offering 4 sciences in this assessment. It will take a look at your behavior. It'll take a look at what your driving forces are. It will take a look at what your skills are. It will take a look at what your acumen is. Acumen is the can-do capacity. So it will look at the how you do what you do behavior, why you do what you do, which is motivation and driving forces. Skills, 25, that's the what you know. And acumen is what is your capacity for understanding.
Right.
So if you do that for companies, it goes anywhere with a review, one-to-one review. It's $12.50.
Wow, that's cheap.
Out there, it's on the high end of the assessments, but thank you. But I'm offering this for your viewers, 5 of them. I'm offering it for free just because we're talking about helping others to understand who they are, what they value, what they may be good at, and then it's just a good thing to offer. So
what's the email address that those 5 people could email you? And maybe my wife will type it into the comments here.
Okay, it's my first name, Jay, at Jay, Steven, STEV as in Victor, EN, and then my last name, Levin, LEV as in Victor, IN, J at jaystevenlevin.com, or just go to my website, winthinking.com.
So you know, and it's, hey, there's 2 things I want to preface this with, and that is it's the internet and it's my show, but I generally keep this around 1 hour, and that leaves us with about, hey, Danny Levin, am I saying that? Is it Levin or Levin?
Well, it just depends on, it can be Levine, it can be Levine, it can be Levin. For me, it's Levin.
Levin. Okay. So, Danny just typed in your email address. Thank you for that, Danny. And so finding your value for somebody who thinks maybe they're afraid to reach out to you because they think they're going to be number 6 and have to pay for it. So what would you say to somebody that may be struggling with understanding? You know, I told you I've meditated every day of my life for the last 15 plus years. And I'm still, there's times when I'm like, okay, I'm not sure I understand what's happening here. I don't know and so I literally retreat to a place where I can be in silence and really, really, if not, you know, meditate on that, really give it some deep thought on it, and silence. And so I know that there's a lot of answers found in the gap in between our thoughts. That's where most answers are. And you know that. But what about the person who's never meditated, who's never really thought like that, had those thoughts, but they don't understand their value. They don't know what that is.
Well, that's why I suggested asking people around you as an example, or getting an assessment. For example, and this doesn't need to be overly complicated. Someone who is anxious or concerned or afraid that they might be number 6. Maybe they're insecure. What do they value? Security. Security is an important value, right?
Yeah.
We're telling ourselves how we are by what we say, what we do, what we're gravitating to. So I think it's, we can make it really complex, but we don't have to. It can just be as simple. And I'm not advocating meditation. I'm advocating having a conversation with others and yourself and looking for and listening to clues that tell us a little bit about who we are. Yesterday, I was speaking with the owner of a very successful private company. He is an entrepreneur in the financial industry. He made a big mistake in his life. He came to me in part to help him grow his business, but he revealed, I don't know who I am. Well, this mistake showed him who he didn't want to be. So he has a better idea who he is. So, I mean, the information is there. It's all around us, whether we see it or not. So just take a look at it. You don't need to meditate if it's not your thing. It's right. Just understanding how to listen and look, hear, see, feel, ask people. Self-aware. I believe real leaders create conditions that activate transformation. What are the conditions that you're putting yourself in? Do you have, what are the experiences that you're surrounding yourself with? What are the mental walls that are conditions? What do you want to break through? What are the questions that you want to ask? What are the answers that you're looking for?
Right. God, I love that, man.
Find an assessment. It's not hard to ask people.
Yeah. I love your I just love your answers, man. So, and I ask this question of every single guest, and it's this, because I have been through a lot of crap in life, a lot, as a child into adulthood, and a lot of stuff. Now, I also accept full responsibility for a lot of the adulthood stuff, right? But I've still been in the position in my life where I had a car repossessed in front of a bunch of employees of mine, right? I've been through having my electric turned off, or being faced with that, or being faced with a lot of different challenges. And so if somebody came to you and they said, Jay, thank you for your time. I want to ask you, I don't know what to do. My electric's being shut off tomorrow. My car was repossessed last week. I'm losing, it feels like I'm literally losing everything that I've worked so hard for, and I don't know what to do. I'm in a really bad place. What would you say to that person at that moment to help them get through this? Because I personally know that anytime I've been in a situation where it was real bad like that, it literally took having a mental shift. And I've oftentimes thought back like, oh God, I'm glad I got through that phase of life, and distinctly recall thinking, like, I know it was up here, it was a mindset shift, but what exactly shifted? Because I haven't been able to define that yet. And I hope that someday I can. But there was a huge shift where I went from feeling like and playing maybe the victim into becoming a champion and the victor, and then like coming out like, okay, wow, we saved the electric company, got another car, blah, 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 blah. But what do you say to that person that asks you out of the blue? What do you say to help them get past that, to get unstuck?
I say 3 simple things. And we'll do it like a role play. Okay, Ken, you've told me about what's happened. 1, what's the real issue here? 2, what do you want to happen? 3, what are the actions needed to make happen what you want to happen? What are the actions needed by when in order to get what you want? It's simple. What's the issue? What do you want? And what are the actions needed across who, by when, to get what you want? We close the gap.
Yep.
It's
best answer ever to that question. Best answer ever. And I have said that before, but you just raised the bar. You just raised the bar, man. That's a great answer to that question.
Yeah, it's practical, it's simple, it's not difficult. The getting from point A to point B or breaking through walls to win what you want has to do with understanding what the issue is, what it is that you really want, and what are the needed actions across who by when to get you there. And then you execute.
Wow.
Right?
That's amazing, man. I love it. Love
Yeah,
it.
it's good stuff. Good stuff.
Well, listen, Jay, we could be on here literally. We could be on here for hours and hours and hours. I know that. Our first meeting was hours and hours and hours. I'm kidding. It wasn't. It was a great meeting. And
The only difference was you had the chili and I didn't.
Well, come to Ohio. I promise you my wife will make you chili. Promise you, and you'll love it. So Jay, how does it, and I think that you already said it, but say it again. How do people follow you? How do they reach out? How do they get in touch? Jay at jaystevenlevin.com.
Yeah, they can
is your
go,
email, and the website is
winthinking.com.
winthinking.com. Yes, Chris Walsh says thank you for these gems. He's a great guy. I spent quite a bit of time on the phone with him last night. I'm sure he's going to be reaching out. My wife loves the interview, so thank you.
Yeah, you can also find me at JSLEVIN. That's Twitter, and then my name, Jay Steven Levin. Search it, look it up. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm around. I'm not as I'm around. So this has been a pleasure. We had some fun. We talked about practical stuff.
Yeah.
You got to hear about my Jewish neurosis. So we had.
Oh my God. Oy vey.
Oy vey.
I had to. Listen, man, thank you so much. I really genuinely appreciate you. I think the world of you, and I know that anyone who watched this is more than grateful for what you've laid out, and all the replay viewers are going to be very thrilled as well. So thank you so much. My wife just said thank you so much, and don't hang up on Skype, but thank you guys, everybody, for watching and for sharing this out. Thank you so much. Appreciate all of you. And Jay, thank you again.
Yeah, bye now.
Bye-bye.